Have you ever noticed how exhausted you are? Even on days when nothing dramatic happens, you answer every message. You nod through every uncomfortable silence. You say yes again, even though your chest tightens the moment the word leaves your mouth. And the worst part? You call it kindness. But what if I told you that your so-called kindness is quietly killing you? This isn't generosity. It's not empathy. What you're calling kindness is people-pleasing. And it is emotional self-harm disguised as virtue. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And that's exactly what people-pleasing prevents. Because when you are constantly tuned into the needs, expectations, and moods of others, you become a stranger to your own soul. Let's get real. You're not helping, you're hiding. You're hiding from conflict. You're hiding from rejection. You're hiding from the terrifying possibility that if you actually showed up as your full, flawed self, someone might walk away. And so, you perform. You smile when you want to scream. You apologize when you've done nothing wrong. You make yourself small, agreeable, accessible. And they love you for it. Until they don't. This is the invisible tax of people-pleasing. You bleed energy into every room. You become the emotional caretaker, the peacemaker, the one who smooths things over. But who's doing that for you? Who's checking in on the part of you that hasn't rested in years? Here's the brutal truth. You're not being nice. You're being controlled by fear. And fear is an expensive master. It costs you time, mental clarity, and self-respect. You stay too long in draining conversations. You do things you don't want to do because you can't bear the look of disappointment on someone's face. You rehearse explanations in your head for things you shouldn't have to explain. And slowly, piece by piece, you give away the most valuable thing you have, your autonomy. Let me ask you something. If someone filmed your day without sound, just body language, just your face, would they see someone free? Or would they see a hostage trying to keep everyone else comfortable? Jung believed that every adaptation we make for love or approval leaves a shadow. And that shadow grows darker the more we deny it. You say yes because you want to be loved. But deep down you feel resentful. You go along with things, but inside you seethe. You don't stand up for yourself and then lie awake at night having the argument you should have had hours ago. This isn't harmony. This is self-abandonment. And here's the paradox. The more you give, the less you're valued. People start to expect your yes. They assume your silence means consent. They push a little further each time because they've learned, sometimes without even realizing it, that you won't push back. Your boundaries don't exist. Not because you don't want them, but because you're terrified. They'll cost you something. Affection, inclusion, peace. But here's the part no one told you. Without those boundaries, everything costs more, especially your soul. You're not imagining it. People-pleasing is exhausting, not just physically, but existentially. Every time you say yes to something that compromises you, you're reinforcing the belief that your needs don't matter. Every time you soften your opinion, laugh at a joke you hate, or accept behavior that wounds you, you train your nervous system to believe that comfort for others is more important than dignity for yourself. You become so used to reading the room that you forget how to read your own emotional weather. Carl Jung didn't see people as fixed beings. He believed that we are in constant dialogue with the unconscious, and that our suffering often points to the very thing we most need to confront. So if you are tired, bitter, anxious, and stretched thin, it isn't random. That's the voice of your unconscious screaming, "Stop giving yourself away." And here's where it gets dark. If you don't deal with this now, it only gets worse. People-pleasing calcifies. It becomes identity. You forget who you were before the niceness, before the performance. You become a ghost with good manners, a polite prisoner. So, ask yourself, who are you performing for? Whose approval is still so powerful that it can override your own needs? What would it cost you to stop? I don't mean stop being good. I mean start being real. Because goodness without boundaries isn't virtue, it's martyrdom. And you weren't born to die for someone else's comfort. You weren't born broken. You were conditioned. From the moment you were praised for being the good one, the quiet one, the helper, you learned something dangerous. That approval is earned through self-erasure. You weren't born people-pleasing. You were trained into it. Maybe your parents only gave you attention when you were compliant. Maybe your caregivers contort themselves just to keep the peace. Or maybe every time you showed emotion, you were told to calm down, smile, behave. You internalized a simple equation. Obedience equals love. Silence equals safety. But Carl Jung would argue that this is the start of your fragmentation, when you repress what's real in order to maintain what's expected. You divide yourself. The real you gets buried. And, in its place, a persona is born. The persona in Jungian psychology is the mask we wear to survive society. It's useful, necessary even, but when you mistake the mask for your identity, you suffer. Because the persona gets applause, and the true self gets silence. This is why your people-pleasing isn't just exhausting, it's disempowering. You think you're helping, you think you're being noble, but what you're really doing is training others to ignore your needs. And that isn't compassion, that's codependence. You've been led to believe that setting boundaries is selfish, that saying no is harsh, that prioritizing your own needs makes you a bad friend, a bad partner, a bad employee. But Jung believed something radically different. He believed that wholeness, not goodness, is the goal of life. And wholeness requires that you stop abandoning yourself to meet someone else's comfort zone. When you say yes to something that violates your truth, you don't just betray yourself, you rob the other person of the opportunity to deal with reality. You disempower them. You enable their illusions. Real kindness requires truth, and sometimes truth hurts. So when you think you're being generous by saying yes, ask yourself, is this kindness? Or is this fear dressed as virtue? Because there is a cost to this counterfeit compassion. It creates resentment. It sabotages intimacy. It breeds entitlement. And slowly, without meaning to, you become the architect of your own emotional depletion. And here's the kicker. The more you fear being seen as selfish, the more likely you are to become bitter, because you know you're not okay. You're just too afraid to admit it. So what now? This is the part where transformation stops being an idea and becomes a practice. You know people-pleasing doesn't serve you. You understand where it came from. You've started to glimpse what's possible when you step into self-loyalty. Now, it's time to build the life that supports this new you. Start here. Choose a boundary you've been avoiding. Something small but symbolic. Maybe it's not answering work emails after 6 p.m. Maybe it's telling a friend you're not up for the usual emotional dump. Maybe it's simply sitting with the discomfort of saying, I'm not available for that. You don't need to announce your transformation. You just need to practice it. Quietly, consistently, and yes, people will push back. You will be called difficult, cold, selfish. Let them. Remember, their discomfort is not your problem. It's their growing pain. Your job is not to soften your truth so others can digest it. Your job is to honor your truth and trust that those who are meant to stay will adapt or leave. And if they leave, good. Because the ones who only love the mask were never going to love the real you. Here's what comes next. Freedom. Freedom to choose how you spend your time. Freedom to speak without rehearsing. Freedom to rest without guilt. Freedom to be fully, unapologetically you. This isn't selfishness. This is psychological adulthood. Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. And it's not about being liked. It's about being whole. So here's your final challenge. Go out into the world and disappoint someone. Say no. Be unavailable. Let them frown. Let them question you. Let them think what they want. And then do the hardest, bravest thing of all. Do nothing. Stay silent. Stay grounded. Stay whole. Because you are no longer the person who shapeshifts for approval. You are the person who finally knows they are enough, just as you are. And that right there is your freedom. If this hit home for you, let me know in the comments by stating I choose wholeness over approval. And if you're ready to keep healing, the next video will take you one layer deeper. Don't stop here. You're not done yet. See you there.